Welcome to Pick Yourself Up. I am Assegid Habtewold, your host. Today, I have a wonderful and special guest, Dr. Arikana Chihombori-Quao. She is the Ambassador of African Union. Your Excellency, thank you very much. I know how busy you are, but you are here in this studio on behalf of our viewers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, son, for having me. I am never too busy for my children.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's nice of you. Let's start our discussion about clarifying the image of Africa. Now, Africa is still viewed in the 21st century by looking at the back, like the 20th century colonization and Africa's being exploited and so on. How do you describe the 21st century Africa?
Well, let me start by saying, in order for you to understand the 21st century Africa, you got to go back. And let me take you back to the 1800s. And more specifically, I want to start with that decisive decision that was taken by our colonizers in 1884. When they decided to meet in Berlin during the Berlin Conference and chopped up our Africa into the tiny little countries that you see today. You see, you got to understand the reason they came together to meet in Berlin was to figure out a way that they can effectively exploit the African people and see to it that Africa and its people are forever defeated. So Berlin Conference was a very pivotal decision that was made by our colonizers. So the more the countries got together, the more countries that came out of it. The more the tribes got together, the more countries that came out of it. The more the tribes didn't get along, the bigger the country came together. So basically, it was clearly divide and conquer. So that was one. Secondly, they also saw the seed that made Africans believe that everything African was bad and everything Western, particularly in those days, French and British, was more desirable and better. So that seed also was sown back in 1884 during the Berlin Conference. Fast forward, nothing has changed. The little country of Burundi, the little country of Rwanda, the country of Djibouti, Benin, Central African Republic, Togo, as a matter of fact, all the African countries were such small economies that it's very difficult to survive. It's very difficult to really take the country to the highest level that it can be. And also, we have very small economies that are easy to destabilize. So it's not bad enough that they broke us up into these tiny little countries in 1884. When they were leaving the continent, particularly France, France made its colonies, former colonies, sign what we call the Pact for the Continuation of Colonization. In this pact, the African countries were told, you got to pay colonial debt. What is colonial debt? They said, we brought you education. We built a few roads. We taught you about eating with a teaspoon and a fork. We call that colonial debt. You're going to pay that to perpetuity. To this day, African countries are still paying. Francophone African countries are still paying colonial debt. They also said, we will manage your money for you. All your monies will be printed in France. 85% of your bank reserves will be kept in France. And then collectively, we'll pool that 85% from your countries, and we will invest in the French stock market and under the French name, and your countries may or may not know what the returns are. And then, not only that, the mineral resources, the oil, all of it discovered and yet to be discovered, France has the first right of refusal. French companies, they're going to be doing the mining, running the oil rigs, all the major projects, private and public. French companies have first right of refusal. The African companies only get whatever the French companies do not take.
So the picture that we have in the 21st century is Africa trapped by its past.
Very much so, because that pact for the continuation of colonization is in the books today and is still in force. French countries don't print their own money. Francophone African countries. So when you look at the pact for the continuation of colonization, you look at, for example, you look at Germany. What the havoc Germany created in Namibia, Germany continues to have a very strong hold in Namibia. Look at Belgium. what Belgium, King Leopold did in the Congo. Over 75% of the population of the Congo was annihilated by King Leopold. And Belgium continues to have a very strong presence in the Congo. The British, not as strong a hold as the French, but they still have a significant influence. British companies who own significant assets on the continent. 75% is reported of the resources at the London Stock Exchange are resources coming out of Africa, owned by English companies. In doing business in Africa. So when you look at Africa today, it's really Africa of yesteryear. And until we, the Africans, come together and realize that we're still very much under the control. Destiny. Yes, we're still very much under the influence of our colonizers.
So what do you think should be done, for example, to change the future and have better destiny? What should Africans do?
Africa needs to wake up. Okay. The Africans need to wake up. Why are we still continuing with the pact for the continuation of colonization? The Francophone countries need to come together and in a united way, let France know that simply cannot go on. Africa is big enough. If only the Western world could stop exploiting Africa. Africa can absorb everybody. The whole world could move into Africa and everybody will do well. But the greed and selfishness coming out of the West is keeping Africa from moving forward. Now, there are others who may beg to differ and say, but Ambassador, there's a lot of corruption. I'll say, yes, I agree with you. Some might say we have corruption. The numbers are saying about $50 billion leaves Africa to Europe through corruption. Well, I'm saying, who is receiving that money? You see, it takes two to tango. I can't be corrupt by myself. So while we talk about corruption in Africa, let's also talk about the corruptors who are receiving that $50 billion. That's one. Secondly, if you want to talk about the $50 billion that's coming out of Africa, claiming that the leaders are taking the money, yes, we do have some, very few, African leaders that are not doing it by their people. The majority of the African leaders are doing very well by their people. Be it as it may, you take 50 billion through corruption. France alone is taking out of Africa 500 to 600 billion every year. So if we want to talk about this 50 billion, we must also talk about the 500 billion. That is just France alone. We're not talking about Germany. We're not talking about Belgium. We're not talking about Britain. Are you with me? It's upwards of billions of dollars are coming out of Africa. Nobody wants to touch this 10,000 pound gorilla. I am saying, in order for us to really look at 21st century Africa, we must understand our history that continues to be alive and well in our lives today. And guess who needs to make that change? Who needs to get that understanding and realization? It's you and I, the Africans.
We have to come together, renegotiate with other partnering continents to shape the future of Africa.
But in order for us to even go to the negotiating table, we must clean our mind. Because we are very much colonized. You know as much as I do, my brother. You walk into a negotiating table. In general, we, black people, we go in feeling superior to our Caucasian brothers and sisters. And they come in feeling superior. So before the conversation even begins, we, the Africans, are defeated. Already defeated. How do you get a Francophone man in Africa, African Francophone, who actually believes he's a Frenchman? How then do you take him, put him on the same table with the Frenchman and expecting him to feel equal?
How can we change the mindset?
We continue to talk, which is why I'm glad you brought me here. Because it's about awareness. It's about getting people to understand our history, where we have been, and how much our past, sadly for us, our past is still very much alive and well within us. So we need to wake up as Africans and realize that we're just as smart as everybody else, and that when we go to the negotiating table, we should have nothing but Africa on our minds. Our problem is we are now being used as our own instrument for self-destruction. We are the ones who talk negative about Africa all the time. They feed us the information, and we don't even realize that we are being manipulated. And we are the worst when it comes to Africa. No. Other countries, no matter how bad things are in their countries, they stand up for their countries and they defend their countries. It's like a family. You and I, my brother, we can fight within ourselves in the home. But the minute an outsider comes in, no, game is over. We're after the outsider. We need to realize that as Africa, we are a family, and we have a responsibility to defend Africa at all costs, because they are using us to destroy ourselves. We are inheritors of an amazing continent, richest continent by far in the world. No continent comes even close. And every day we are discovering more and more resources, while the rest of the world is looking to Africa for all its needs. Its children, the Africans, the African diaspora, we're completely oblivious to that fact.
Yeah, but by the way, there's a very powerful quotation which says, we found the enemy and it is us.
Yes.
So where Africa,
Yes.
we can trace back is us. And if we want to have a different future, then the change starts within. And I think schools, media, leaders, and so on play a great role to change that. I just want to also talk about...
let me correct you on that one. The media also is not playing a good role.
The African media, I mean.
is painting, even that media is controlled. It's painting a negative image of Africa. The media could, but the media is not telling the story. It's perpetuating the same narrative of a dark, diseased continent, dying people, at war with itself. The media could also help us by showing a balanced view of Africa. That is not happening. That's why we have to tell our own stories.
Yeah, individually using the social media, opportunities like that too. So let's talk about the relationship between, because you're ambassador of the African Union in the United States. How is the relationship between Africa and the United States nowadays?
Well, America remains the most preferred partner by the Africans, by far. So I hope that I was sent here to make sure that that relationship...
Why is that important? Why America is especially favored by Africa?
Because the manner in which America comes into Africa, they bring superior products, they push democracy and good governance. But in general, you know what you're getting when you're dealing with the United States. And we don't have the legacy of colonialism weighing in on us. So the U.S. is not as entrenched in Africa as, say, France and Britain and Germany and Belgium. Germany, of course, you find stronger roots in countries like Namibia, and of course, Britain in the former British colonies. So America is, and by the way, let me make it clear, America was invited to join the Berlin Conference, and America turned down that invitation. So we don't have those roots, minus slavery.
No resentment towards America?
None, with the exception of the history of slavery. The former
colonizers. Yeah.
Oh, the former colonizers, they are still in deep. So I think that's why America is easier to swallow.
And also America resonates with us because they were colonized by Great Britain.
Thank you.
Yeah.
They know the pain.
What it feels.
They feel the pain. Yeah. So America is in a good place. Yeah. But my biggest fear right now is that if America does not strategize, re-strategize, then there's a new kid on the block, which is China. You see, the difference with the Western countries is when African countries needed money, the Western countries made the African countries jump through all kinds of hoops. Then China realized that if I'm going to join this game, I need to come with a different strategy. So China would say, how much with the checkbook? Ready to write the check. China is coming in with a different strategy. It's a new kid on the block, and I think the U.S. needs to re-strategize, and I think they're already doing it. Okay. I think we got China giving an additional $60 billion to the African leaders during the last FOCAC meeting, which was held a couple of weeks ago. And the U.S. is now talking about giving also $60 billion for development in Africa. So I think...
Sorry, let me interrupt you here because of the break. Let's give our viewers a quick break and we'll come back again and we'll continue from where we stopped. Dear our viewers, we'll take a quick break and come back, and we ask you to stay tuned.
I understand. I know it's not your typical resume.
Okay, well...
But candidate. But I've been working double shifts just to pay for books. I've been raising my 2 little brothers. I'm determined, driven, motivated. Isn't that what you're looking for?
Look beyond the resume and discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org.
This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Remember that to love America is to love all Americans, because love has no labels.
Welcome back. This is Pick Yourself Up show. We have been talking about issues that are related to Africa. Inside the studio, we have Ambassador of the African Union to the United States. We will continue to talk about Africa, the diaspora, and other related issues. Stay tuned. Thank you very much one more time for coming here. And we've been talking about how Africa could be able to renegotiate and make sure that she benefits from the global market. And I cut you off because of the break. So let's continue from where we start.
Yes, we were talking about U.S. engagement. I am here to make sure that the relationship between Africa and the United States is the best that it can be. In my own assessment, our lack of understanding of each other is a serious problem. We Africans, we come in feeling inferior from the legacy of colonialism. Thank you very much. And the Americans come in feeling superior. So we're sort of running parallel to each other. So not having a truly meaningful conversation. We need to step up and realize that we're just as good as anybody else. And our friends need to also come off their high horses, and we meet each other in the middle, which is where we belong. And we can have a truly meaningful conversation as equals.
And it's a win-win, I believe. If we come together,
Absolutely.
there are a lot of opportunities. As you said, America is losing ground in Africa. If there is good relationship between America and Africa, American businesses could be able to invest in Africa,
Absolutely.
compete in Africa, and also benefit from the products and services that come from Africa.
America is still preferred. American products are still preferred. So I do not want to see America lose that ground. So that's one of the mandates that I have, to see to it that we have the best relationship that we can have with the United States. I'm a woman on a mission, and I intend to win on that score.
Yeah.
Now, for that also to succeed, we also have to look at the wealth of the diaspora, African diaspora that are in this country and their contributions. You know, I remember years ago when Secretary Clinton then, she had a program that was called International Diaspora Engagement Alliance. At that inaugural meeting, Secretary Clinton said, years ago, when America needed friends, America sent Americans all over the world to make friends. She said, now America's investment is complete. There is not a single country in the world that is not represented here in this country. The same is true for Africa. So if American businesses are trying to get into Africa, why do it alone? You have friends right here.
Yeah, the
in
diaspora.
America.
They can create the bridge.
Absolutely. And so that's one message I'm trying to push, because I hear a lot of complaints and problems that American businesses are running into, trying to get into Africa. They say, oh, it's so difficult to do business in Africa. Something that should take 1 month will take a year. When you go in with somebody who knows the terrain,
The culture,
it makes it easy. Don't do it alone. Don't reinvent the wheel. The diaspora are already here. I know there are some who have partnered with diaspora, and the experience wasn't the best that it can be. Well, guess what? That's why we are here.
We learn from that, and also African Union right here.
That's our job as the African Union mission. And by the way, we are located on 1640 Wisconsin Avenue, Northwest, right here in Washington, D.C. It is our job to partner American businesses with the right diaspora. We're not claiming to be perfect individuals, but we will do our best to partner the American companies with the right diaspora. So your entry into a country between the African Union mission, the embassies, and our diaspora, we can put together a package that will make it easier for American businesses. For example, Montgomery County, which is where we are now. We would love to partner with the county. It's a very rich county. It's a county with a very large population of the African diaspora. We'd like to create those relationships and have you guys hold each other's hands and waltz your way into Africa. You know, with a beautiful melody, and we will serenade you.
Yeah, by the way, last time when we chatted that there are some counties that are partnering with your office in the DC metro area. And I was jealous because I'm from Montgomery County. I know the size of African immigrants in Montgomery County. This is one of the diverse counties in the country. And I was saying, why not? The Montgomery County working with the African Union. Do you have any suggestion?
I have an answer for that. It's all your fault.
Oh, I brought it at least now.
Okay, good.
What should
Then-
I do now?
And
Tell
I'm
me.
counting on you because the other counties, Prince George's, they approached me. The diaspora in that county came to the AU. So you need to come
Okay,
home.
all right.
You know, the
I'll take the
diaspora in Montgomery
responsibility.
County
Yeah.
must come home to the African Union, and let's start the conversation because we also need to be able to thank Montgomery County for welcoming the African diaspora. Because Montgomery County, as a matter of fact, all of Maryland really, the government is doing tremendous job
Yeah.
in welcoming the African diaspora and opening the doors. Where we are dropping the ball as Africans is the Chamber of Commerce. You guys have not been able to put together an effective, single African Chamber of Commerce. You have that Chamber of Commerce and that Chamber of Commerce, that Chamber of
Too
Commerce.
divided, too
Yeah,
small, to have impact.
Berlin Conference, I keep going back to that. When you look at the Mexicans, one Chamber of Commerce in a community, they work together, they benefit from the funding that is being put out there for the diaspora.
I think the good thing is that, I talked to you, you said already, you are a woman, on mission, you're very passionate, and you have that African resonance passion in you. I think this is a great opportunity for the diaspora, these, different organizations, to use a platform that you create, because you have a wonderful opportunity in network with other embassies, back home with governments, and also with counties in this country. And this Chamber of Commerce or any organization established by the diaspora should really come close and work with you.
With AU, absolutely.
Yeah.
All we are there is to open doors. My job is to open doors. The platform of the AU, it is our platform. It is not a platform without its diaspora. There needs to be the involvement of the diaspora. Diaspora must own the African Union because you and I are the African Union. We must really realize that responsibility. There's one more thing I want to share with you when we talk about the African diaspora and American businesses. I want the diaspora to know, and American businesses, that there's something called the African Continental Free Trade Area. This is an agreement that was signed by 50 of our African heads of states to say, as disjointed, broken up African countries, we cannot negotiate effectively with other nations outside Africa. So Africa is looking to negotiate as a bloc, one continent, one voice.
That's
so
very powerful.
It is extremely powerful. Yeah. This is exactly what our Pan-African leaders were trying to accomplish in 1963 when they met to create the Organization of African Unity. So now those boundaries that were created by the colonial masters, we are saying they must go. And now Africa must speak with one voice as children of one mother Africa. So please be on the lookout and understand the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are in the process of ratifying. The hope is by January, we'll have all the ratifications we need and implementation can begin 30 days after that. We also had protocols for the free movement of people that are being signed. 30 heads of states have signed. We only need 15 countries to ratify. Again, that ratification process is underway. This also means that the heads of states are saying Africans should be free to live and work wherever they want to live and work within the continent. So those are two major decisions made by our African leaders that are really beginning to take us in the direction where we can begin to speak of one Africa, one continent, one voice. This is more important as well to the American businesses, because think about it, currently trying to do business. I was reading a report, Dangote himself, as an African, he needs 38 visas to do business on the continent. How ridiculous is that? So when we can remove all those visa requirements, think of what that does to American businesses trying to come to Africa. Now, you just go into Africa and you can do business.
Just, without any visa.
Thank you. So I want the American businesses to know that this is going on. So the sooner we begin to strategize, the sooner we begin to bring that awareness. So when that does take place, America will be in the forefront in terms of benefiting and going to Africa and doing what Africa is asking to do, bring in our friends, let's join hands and build the Africa that we want. Together, the African diaspora, the Africans on the continent, and our friends of Africa.
Yeah, this is really a good news. The only worry that I have is I just heard, for example, some of the news that you're sharing to me, and I'm worried that many African diaspora, they may not know this thing, and most importantly, they may not know what they should do to contribute contribute for the success of these protocols and opportunities so that we could be able to take Africa to the next level. We could be able to open Africa for American businesses to come and invest in Africa. So do you have any recommendations? Like,
Yes.
do you have any initiatives that engage the African diaspora with the African Union?
It's a good thing you should ask. Actually, we're going to be having an event on the 15th and 16th at the mission.
Okay.
It's being
Okay.
sponsored by the USAID
Wow.
because we realize that, for example, this is falling under AGOA.
Okay.
How can you expect AGOA expansion to occur if American businesses do not know about the African businesses and vice versa?
Yeah.
So the plan is hopefully sometime next year there will be a trade fair where African businesses will come to the United States to meet American businesses, and this is something that's going to be done on an annual basis. But a preliminary meeting is being sponsored by the USAID because the US government, through the State Department, truly believe that expansion of AGOA is a must. We have about 6.5 years left with these preferences. So we are hoping to really revamp and crank it up and get AGOA expansion in as many countries as possible. And my idea is to say, we have the African diaspora. They must partner with the American businesses. We got this.
Yeah.
And then on the ground, we have the African women entrepreneurs. We have lots of women businesses that need to partner with us in the diaspora. So at the mission, we are on a mission to see to it that these relationships that are so crucial in building and expanding AGOA are created. This is not going to happen in a vacuum. We have to make it happen. So I hope you can be available to come
definitely.
and
I would
attend
love
the
to.
program on the 15th and 16th. It's at the mission. And I'll be happy to give you more information about how to register and participate. But and of course, I encourage all diaspora to stop by the mission. And we will have programs. I'm going to try and have one program that we will begin a registration of all the continental African diaspora businesses, as well as the African American businesses, and of course, Friends of Africa, because I noticed those are the ones that are being left behind. The other American businesses, the bigger ones, we can access them. The ones we are not accessing are the African American businesses and the continental
diaspora,
African businesses. So we are looking to be creating a registry of those businesses so we can better benefit from the changes that are getting ready to occur in Africa.
So I have 1 minute, but I want to ask you this. I see some hopeful things going on in Africa, including my own country, in Ethiopia, a newly elected prime minister, young, vibrant, and he's into that, boundaryless Africa, opening more markets to the region, reconciliation, and so on. What's your take about the leaders, the emerging leaders that Africa has now? Do you think they could be able to really usher Africa into prosperity, peace, and democracy?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, we are so proud of Prime Minister Abiy. I mean, what a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Amazing. What a difference one man can make. Single decision. And this goes back to the Berlin Conference again. I don't mean to beat this drum, but I think it's important that people understand why was Ethiopia fighting with Eritrea?
Yeah, no need.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
You are the same people. Why are the Cameroonians fighting each other? The French and the Anglophones. Why did they even do that? The Berlin Conference. It was bad enough that you got little old Cameroon, and then you had to divide it, and you say, France, take the other side, and Britain. It is insanity of the highest order. They're the same people. Sudan, South Sudan, same people. What is wrong with us Africans?
Yeah, so the coming of like Abiy and other emerging leaders may change the atmosphere and the environment.
And it's already happening.
Yeah.
Look what's happening in the Horn of Africa.
Yeah.
Abiy is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
We have a few of those already. We need a few more. That's how Africa is going to take its rightful place on the world stage.
Thank you very much. On behalf of our viewers, you have come here, you're very busy, but you have come here and you enlightened us about what's going on. So we admire you being here. Dear our viewers, this is my hope that you enjoyed our conversation. Until I see you with another program, thank you very much for watching.